all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people. I'm Jeremy Ambram. I'm an Irinji Bundaburra man from Atherton Tablelands for far north Queensland. And yes, I am cold down here in Ngunnawal country. I'd like to pay my respects as well to the old people as well, who guided us all here tonight, and to you who made it here tonight. Thank you very much. Here at the library, I'm the program manager in the Indigenous Engagement section. We work across the library strategically and operationally, building the grounding of the library, supporting its capability to deliver programs and services of the highest order based on a commitment of practices that ensure cultural authenticity, integrity, and authority. The Deadly Dialogues is an opportunity to action these, to celebrate Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and their journeys, and acknowledge the diverse cultures of First Nations people through in-conversation style events. Following this conversation, there will be a Q&A and a book signing up in the foyer too. So let me introduce our guest facilitator tonight. She's a tech communicator, advocate who drives digital inclusion within First Nations communities. With over 10 years of engaging communities, she's a passionate advocate, fostering relationships and developing impactful programs, directing her expertise to provide STEM education and digital upskilling for First Nations peoples, empowering communities for the digital age, envisioning a future where First Nations people confidently navigate the tech landscape and actively contribute to reshaping the industry's narrative. An innovator who inspires change and challenges the norms to pursue a more inclusive and diverse tech future, Celeste Carnegie.
That makes me sound real deadly.
And with Celeste tonight is an accomplished scholar from the Kamilaroi Nation in east of Australia, with degrees in mathematics, physics, and advanced Masters of Astronomy, and is currently undertaking a PhD in astronomy at the Australian National University. She uses her extensive experience in science communication and media to advocate for the importance of Indigenous stewardship and astronomy in space practices, with extensive experience across various media platforms and the recipient of numerous awards for leadership and research impact, co-author of the acclaimed book, First Knowledge's Astronomy, Sky Country, Karlie Noon. Now, if we look to the screen, we will see the name Jeremy Ambram is nowhere to be found.
Oh.
So I'm going to stop talking and leave it to the Gammon Guild's very own Celeste and Karlie Noon. Enjoy your Deadly Dialogues.
Oh. Oh, well, hello, everybody. Thank you for coming today. It's a Wednesday. I hope everyone's feeling, good in the middle of the week. I know I'm just waiting for Friday, as usual. As Jeremy, that was a lovely introduction, so thank you for that. But I'm Celeste. I'm a Birragubba and South Sea Islander woman from North Queensland. My family come from the Burdekin. I don't know if anyone's heard of the Burdekin. It encompasses a small town called Ayr and Home Hill. They're sugarcane towns. But yes, I come from two groups of people, one who was displaced and the other one who was part of a slave trade. If you don't know much about South Sea Islanders in the country of Australia, then you can Google it, do some research, but a lot of history there as well. Any rundown you want to give us?
Sure. Hello, Yama, everyone. I am a Kamilaroi and Wiradjuri descendant. I was lucky to grow up on Kamilaroi country in Tamworth, New South Wales. Hometown country music capital of Australia, in case you didn't know. It's very happening in Tamworth. It actually is. It's grown a lot since I was a young one in the 90s. And yeah, I'm the astronomer,
yes.
the science communicator, at least I try to be really hard. About halfway through my PhD at the moment. But yeah, my beautiful mother is here tonight. So thank you for being here, Mum. Don't cry. And yeah, I just want to thank you all so much for being here, for supporting mob in general, and the library as well. It's not very often you get to work with, people that you really love and admire. So it's really lovely
Yes.
to be here tonight.
Yeah, and we've known each other for how long now?
It's been a few years. Hey.
Yeah, I want to say when you meet those people, and it's just so natural that you don't even know when you met, and you feel like you've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
That's definitely this. And I think when it comes to women in STEM, which is our connector, in the world of the professions, and the disciplines, that is definitely, we met through I think we met through the Powerhouse Museum.
I can't even remember, to be honest.
Anyway, but when you're a woman in STEM, especially when you're an Indigenous woman in STEM, there's only so few of us, and so when you do finally connect, you don't get long.
Yeah.
You don't get long, because then you've got to get back out there and represent the mob, because there's not many of us doing it. But when we do connect,
and it's women in STEM, but also Indigenous women in STEM.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
An extra layer, which just kind of makes it less likely to meet someone who you can relate to on that level. But yeah, I do remember now. I do remember meeting you. And it was maybe like 2016.
Yeah, which is actually quite a long time. A long time has passed. But yes, so that comes with its whole own thing. But in terms of the STEM journey, everyone's journey into STEM is different. You've got some people who are high achievers in school and know their path and are just rolling through it, and then you got some of us like myself who didn't really think technology and working with community at the same time was a plausible option for oneself. So it's crazy to think now that from someone who only thought they were good at sport, because I was an athlete for a while, I was a netballer, for someone who was just good at sport and only thought they were good at sport, ending up in the career I'm in now is like, it's a bit crazy, is that I can do what I love and what I'm passionate about, and get paid to do it with people that I like doing it with, which is my community. But yeah, do you just want to give us a rundown? I know it's a big rundown.
Yeah, I'll try and keep it short.
of your STEM journey and the path that you took getting into STEM, and and even in your book around you wrote your personal perspective around how philosophy even influenced that.
Yeah. So I think I had I can very much relate to, I did not do well at school. School was pretty rough. It was pretty hard. I was always kind of behind or trying to catch up. And it just gets to a point where you just, there's just too much to catch up on. And so I was never a high achiever, never really seen at school, which often happens to people who don't do particularly well. You just aren't seen by your teachers. But I was really lucky. I had an auntie who would come and teach me maths, and if you've read the book, you would have known all about this or heard me talk before. And she really gave me a lot of confidence in maths. I didn't have much confidence in anything. And she just made it fun, and she took a lot of the pressure away that we can kind of experience at school. It wasn't about the marks, it wasn't about doing better than other people, it was just having fun and learning along the way and making her proud as well, right? She kind of embedded this, when she saw me get something right, she'd just have this big smile on her face, and she'd go and tell my mum and go and tell grandma, and you want to make your people proud. So I was really lucky to have that from quite a young age, and to do that kind of one-on-one tutoring. It really, really benefited me, and I know that it benefits a lot of mum who maybe are a bit too shy to, speak up when they're not following or to ask questions. So yeah, tutoring has had a really big impact on my life. I ended up leaving school in year 8. My nan passed away at the time. I was about 13, and life was just a bit too much, a bit too hard. School was much harder, put on top of that, and so I ended up leaving, and I went into TAFE. And going into TAFE, it's a lot more independent learning, and I would think I was a lot better suited for that type of learning. And I really flourished there because I was able to learn things that were better suited to my level. I didn't have to kind of stick with a very rigid curriculum. and learn the same things that the rest of the class was learning. I could learn the stuff that at the level that I was at. I really, really did quite well. And so by the time I was about 16, I was learning at a level higher. So I was in about year 10 and I was learning at a year 11 level. And they were like, girl, you need to go back to school. Like, we can't teach you anymore. And so I was like, well, I really want to learn more. So
They're kicking me out.
I guess I'll go back to school.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad I did. But even going back, I didn't do particularly well because I had big gaps in my education. They put me in the low classes again. And even though I really strongly advocated for myself, I was like, no, I'm really good at maths. I want to do science. It didn't work out. But that was okay. I persevered through general maths. I found it quite dull for me because I wasn't being challenged. And I think that's really important. If you're just learning the same things over and over again, it's, what's the point? And so I didn't engage in it very much. I didn't do very well. But I did good enough. I got an ATAR of about 57. Wasn't great, but it was enough to get into uni. And that was kind of the goal. I want to go into uni. I started doing ancient history, actually. I loved ancient history. I loved ancient Egypt. Since I was a little kid, I'd be reading those, those big, colourful, like gold Egyptology and wizardology. Yeah,
yes.
I loved those books growing up. And so I went into ancient history thinking, this is for me. And the first lecture, it was on Julius Caesar. And I fell asleep. And I was, and no offense to Julius Caesar, he had a very colourful life. But I was just...
not for me.
It was just not for me at that time. And, I think if I went into it now, I would find it very interesting. But, it just wasn't for, little 18-year-old Karlie.
Yeah.
And so I started, looking around. I did some English. I did some religion and sociology. And I did philosophy. And I learned in philosophy that it's actually very similar to maths. And this was not something that I had known before. But in philosophy, you use things like logic tables, which is a very rigorous way of determining a conclusion or a truth. So it's quite similar, to a scientific practice or a mathematical practice. And I was like, this is really cool. I quite like this because it's so definitive, right? It's like, this is the answer. And I was really looking for that. I was looking for, something concrete. And I was like, well, what's more concrete than mathematics, right? Which is actually silly now because mathematics and physics can be really quite abstract and not concrete at all. But I didn't know that back then. And so I went into it. It was pretty rough. I had no advanced math skills. I had no physics. I'd never done physics in my life. I spent the 2 months before starting uni over Christmas doing Khan Academy courses, doing year 11 and year 12 maths and physics and trying to quickly learn it as quickly as I could. And I did okay. I passed a few courses. I failed a few courses. But I was okay with that. I kind of expected to fail, coming with no background. But I really enjoyed it at the same time. So that's kind of what kept me going. It was really stressful. Uni's stressful regardless of what you do. It takes a lot of motivation and a lot of effort to stick with a university degree, whatever it is.
I couldn't cut it. I couldn't cut it. It was just it wasn't a learning environment that suited me. Yeah. Especially when I was, I was one of 5 women in the class, and I was the only black fella in the room too, or a person that looked like me. So it was just very, dealing with all of that before I could even learn. Yeah. Was the hard part. Yeah. But and uni's not for everybody.
Yeah.
That's what I tell myself.
Yeah, no, it's not.
It's not
really
for everyone,
not.
But it's not,
Yeah.
Some of us are equipped to just get out there and into the workforce and
yeah.
And I've met plenty of people along the way who, who went straight from high school straight into the workforce and just killed it.
Yeah.
and that was very much suited to them. And so I guess even looking at all the black fellas in my life and all the paths they took, and my family and my friends, and luckily, and I know that it's a privilege and it's a luxury to have good role models as well in your life. And but yeah, I still think that's something that I struggle with today in terms of like, maybe I should go and get a degree just to have one, but then I don't really think that serves me.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think it does.
Yeah.
And, I think what is important is that we have options, right? You spoke about being an athlete for a lot of your life. I don't know if you can tell just looking at me, but I'm not an athlete. I never have been. And, I would wag sports class, like to the extent, like I was terrified of sports growing up. And so, I was so lost. Like, what are my options? I can't do sports. That's never happening.
Yes, yeah, okay.
And so it's like having the options, and I'm just really lucky that I found something that I vibed with so well, and that got me through the horrible time that is undergraduate studies, and managed to come out the other side.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have to do that, I wouldn't. I would not put myself through that if I didn't, feel like I have to. And I feel like it's really important that we acknowledge not everybody needs to go to uni.
Yes.
Right? It's about finding the thing that fits you, that brings value and joy to your life. And I think for that, you need to be adding value back, right? It needs to be this reciprocal situation you're in, so that you can stay motivated and stay passionate and, adding value to other people's lives. And if you can find that, who cares if you have a degree or not?
True. And I feel like it's also difficult too, because there's no awareness of options for young black fellas about what they can do. And that's part of what we do now, which I think is really cool. And to be like, here's all these other things that are out there, and we know we're deadly at sport. We know that, and that's pretty cool too. We've got some really great fellas and some really cool teams, and doing some really cool, playing some really cool sports, and representing us in with excellence. Yeah. But there's all these careers and these opportunities out there that we just have no idea about. And most of the time, and those opportunities need to be, brought to our attention when we're in school.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard when you leave and you've got no direction, you don't know where you're going, and all you've been told is you can only do this.
Yeah.
Or you're only seeing certain pathways available to you. So I think whilst my time in netball wasn't a very happy time in the long run, I had some great memories from it, but it's just, and I needed sport to put me on a path of the tech, because I got into tech through my ability to facilitate workshops and collaborate with people. That's how I got into tech. It wasn't through me going down a technical route. So it was me being able to run workshops and facilitate and do trainings and work with young people. And then that's what set me on the path of upskilling communities in technology. And so I think, when it comes to pathways in tech, and that's why I like to remind our young people, and just in STEM in general, there's no one way. You don't actually have to be a high achiever at school.
Yeah.
And I think we both have that similar experience in just being the problem child, or the difficult student. When really we were just poor.
Yeah. And just didn't have many options.
We didn't have any options. So
And I think it's really interesting. You never, when you enter a field that is so underrepresented, there's such a severe underrepresentation of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in academia, in general, let alone the extra layer of STEM. So sorry, I should also say, if you don't know what STEM is, science, technology, engineering and maths. We haven't really been able to enter these arenas until very recently. And when you have a field that is so underrepresented until someone enters it, right? So, for example, no one was really talking about Aboriginal astronomy, 15 years ago. I had conversations with elders about some sky knowledge and some stories. But in the broader Australian psyche, like it wasn't really something that was acknowledged. In academia, it had definitely been touched on, and there were certainly some people who were pioneering that and pushing for the recognition of that. But more broadly, it wasn't a part of the national conversation. It wasn't a part, and you look today and it's a part of the curriculum now. And so there's been this really huge celebration of our knowledges, our peoples, our cultures, the sophistication in it. And I think that's really only happened since Indigenous people have started becoming a part of that conversation. And I feel like it's very similar in your role. You don't really know what you can bring to the table or what mob can bring to the table until you actually have mob at the table.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you're learning this skill set of engagement and facilitating. This is something that is often lacking in a lot of spaces, but that's somewhere where you shine.
Yes. Well, because in my head, all I'm thinking is, community is best served by community.
Yeah.
That's where I was coming from. That's
Yeah.
my intention with the work that I do. Community-led, community-designed, community-driven. So it's like, that's where the love for working with community started, and also think about this whole untapped industry of technology that people, like, we don't even know we have access to that community, that industry,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of money in tech,
Yeah.
and so we're also missing out on this whole,
Absolutely.
which can change people's lives.
Yep. And does.
Yeah.
But for mob, like, I'm first in family to go to university. I'm one of the first to finish school, and just by doing that has completely changed. Like, I have a little cousin who just finished year 12. Like, that was unheard of when I was growing up in my family, to even go to year 12. So, it has such a big impact back home, what we do.
And when did you, I'm just realising now, so when you were at university, 'cause I want to hear this, yeah. When you were at university, what was that, you were in philosophy, I guess, what was that deciding, like, what was that thing that just pushed you into astronomy?
Yeah, I think it was that because I had never really engaged with the sciences, never really engaged with society much in general, to be honest. We were really poor. We were pretty, we didn't really watch things like Cosmos or anything like that. Like, I was really not exposed to physics at all. But I think that was actually a really big benefit to me, because I didn't have any, I didn't make any assumptions about physics or science or anything like that. I had just been exposed to this field through philosophy. We were exploring different theories of creation. And so we looked at, obviously, Christian theories of creation. We looked at all the different religions, not all of them, there's a lot, but some of the different religions. We looked at the science theory of creation, so looking at the Big Bang, looking at the multiverse theory. And that was really my first exposure to studying physics. And so I was just like, oh, this is really cool. I didn't know that this was something that only men really had access to. I didn't see any of that. I was just like, oh, this is really cool. And like, you can actually study that here at the uni. So why am I not studying that? I find it really cool. Like, it was so naive at the time, but that really,
We've all been there.
it was a really big benefit that I hadn't been exposed to all of the assumptions we kind of make about scientists or physicists, these ideas that, you have to be a genius, and, a particular type of person. I just didn't know about any of that. So I was just like, look, this is really cool. I'm just going to do it. And YOLO, like, who cares? We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
And then I just loved it. I loved the process. I loved watching, like, seeing myself get better and better at something. Having such a hard thing, like such a hard challenge, and spending days on it, and then eventually being able to solve it. And just seeing that progress happen, and learning about how our world works, how the universe works. I was just like, this should be fundamental knowledge. We should all have access to this. I was really entitled, to be honest. I was like, why do we not all have access to this? And I still have that entitlement today. So there's a lot of conversations happening at the moment around who is really entitled to go to uni these days. And of course, we have difficult economic times that are inspiring this conversation. But another thing that's really inspiring this conversation is AI. And so we're kind of at this situation now where AI is becoming very close to outperforming students, if not just completely outperforming them in general. And so there's kind of this, this thought like, well, why would we have students when we have AI? And I think it's a bit silly, because we all have a right to education. We all have a right to this knowledge. It shouldn't be, kept away in this ivory tower where only, a select small percentage of people are entitled to have access to it. That's just not how things should work. We've seen that happen in the past. We see it happen now. And it's just, I think we have the resources and the opportunity to move beyond enforcing inequalities. Because that's what you do, right? When you say, okay, you can go, you can go, you can go, you're choosing the one based off a lot of prejudice and a lot of bias. And so I just don't think, I think we should all have access to it. We should all be studying it. And really, that's what allowed me to enter it in the first place. Not because I'm a genius, not because I did particularly well, or anything like that. And I'm still here today, not for any of those reasons, but just because I'm really a little bit entitled, a lot stubborn, very, very stubborn. They couldn't get rid of me. And I just kept going. I just didn't give up.
And was there like a moment where, like, did you like stumble upon, astrophysics or, astronomy, or was it like, were you like looking up at the sky one day and you were like, I want to learn about you, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no. I'm kind of envious of the people who can be like, oh, I always loved astronomy. No, that was not me at all.
Right.
I wanted to be a wrestler. Like,
I love that.
yeah, I used to love WWE and would watch it with my mum, and I wanted to be a wrestler. I thought, and I used to wrestle with my dad and my brother on the trampoline. And like, I love that. I was like, yeah, this is really cool. So
we could have had an Aboriginal wrestler.
Hey, we do have some. They're out there. But no, I was never, heaps into, I obviously adored the sky. I had always adored the sky, but I had just, like, I adored the land, right? It was never really that different for me.
No, yeah.
But how I stumbled upon it was, so when I graduated and finished finished my first degree. So I did a combined Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Maths, and I majored in physics and pure maths at the University of Newcastle. And it turned out I was the first Indigenous woman to have both of those degrees in Australia. There was a man who had gotten those degrees in WA a few years prior to that. But it was kind of a moment for the universities, I think, in them. So this is back in 2016. So really not that long ago. And when I heard that, I was kind of appalled. I was like, what? Like, why am I not the 10,000th, person to do this? And it brought a lot of attention onto me. And, as a black fella, and you kind of get a camera in your face, it's kind of like, you're Aboriginal and you're doing this science. Like, what can you tell us about Aboriginal science? And I'd heard a few stories that an uncle had told me, growing up and a few years prior to that. But I was like, that's a really good question, and maybe that's why I'm not the 10,000th, because science has never at all been remotely inclusive for us, or considered us to be involved. And so, I teamed up with some people who had been working in this space. A professor, he had reached out to me and he was really excited. He was a non-Indigenous man, or is a non-Indigenous man working in this space in academia. And he was just so thrilled, because he had kind of been waving this flag for a long time that, Indigenous people have so much astronomical knowledge in their culture. And why are we not talking about this? Why, he had been advocating for it for so long. And so to have an Indigenous person in this space was quite exciting to him. And we started working together. This is when I started doing a lot of work looking at moon halos. And so this was a really exciting time for me because I was able to combine my knowledge in physics. I started learning a lot about atmospheric physics, which is really, really interesting. You're learning a lot about clouds, different temperatures, optics, which is a really fun field, all these different areas of physics that I'd never really gone too deeply into. And so I was learning all this stuff. But I was also learning about a lot of mob stories, different traditions, ways that mob predicted the weather using this type of phenomena. And so that kind of kicked off my interest in astronomy. And I started, before that, I'd been doing a lot of science communication, working out in communities. I would go around Australia many times a year, out to very remote communities, promoting science, promoting STEM, doing the very typical kind of Questacon-y style science shows, like big explosions, lots of chemical reactions, really fun stuff. And I'd been doing that for years. But then as I started to get more into astronomy and learning more about our culture, I was like, why am I not sharing our culture with mob? And, it was obvious because I didn't know it at the time. I didn't, I'd never really had much access to it. And none of us really had. Well, at least a lot of us never really did.
And I only just recently read your book, and going through all the stories that you were talking that, linked up and connected to how things are working up there. It was just like that. Not that I was surprised or shocked by the sophistication of it all, but like it kind of just validated. I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense that they would do that because of that. You know what I mean?
I had the exact same feeling,
right?
Yeah. You're
it's
not
the same,
surprised. You know it. You know it in there, but you've never been able to know the details of it.
No. And even just acknowledging the ingenuity and the sophistication then, and even now in my own family. And in my own in the communities that I go to and how they operate, like it's still, it's not that, and it's not even that it's talked about. It's just that's just a way of life, And so just reading your book, reading all those stories and how it all links up, I was just like, like it's just like a glass shattering, like moment. Like that makes total sense. Like I don't know, and also considering and recognizing mob as experts. In this field and in this knowledge and what they know, and not just like a throwaway these mob over here said this thing about this. It's
that's a nice story.
Yes, it's actually the longest database. I think that's mentioned in the book too. Like this is actually. It's a database. These stories are actually a database. These oral traditions are actually a database.
And we look at scientists in our society today. So Stephen Hawking was one of my favorite physicists and scientists. I was really inspired by a lot of his writings. He was a really amazing, incredible science communicator. And we look at these people as geniuses. We do. They are the in the top echelons of society. And we have a culture here that has very, very similar knowledge, very similar knowledge base, a very scientific knowledge base. But yet historically, we have not been treated like that at all. And our old people have not been treated like that at all. And so, of course, we should be treating it as expertise and as knowledge. And, how else would a society survive for that long, 65,000 years plus. How else could you do that without in-depth knowledge on your environment and your surroundings? So I think we're at a really fun time for Mob, a really interesting time and a really exciting time, because we do get to celebrate our old peoples. We get to celebrate their knowledge and their expertise, and just the generations of passing that knowledge down, right? Because oral traditions obviously work very differently to, how we learn today. How we learn today, we look up things on Wikipedia. We Google things. We type it into AI and ask for the answer or how to solve things. Oral traditions don't work like that. They're very, very different. And just having that knowledge passed down for so long and be, and it's also not the same knowledge that gets passed down. As new information comes in, those stories change and those song lines change and evolve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, because the sky, what I've learned from Sky Country,
Yeah.
that the sky's changing over thousands of years. So they're documenting.
Yeah.
That's that was just so awesome to read that. It's also like a very, very I come from really deadly peoples.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I felt reading your book too.
Yeah.
Like it just, yeah. And also I just wanted to, while we're on the topic of your book, I just wanted to recognize that you wrote this. Like this is you in this book, and I just think you're really amazing for doing this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I would say, not really. Right. I didn't write this. This is not my knowledge.
Yes.
This is thousands and thousands of generations who have transferred this knowledge on. And so really all I did was I went into science, and I was lucky to be born with my mum and within my family and my matriarch, and be born on country, have that strong sense of who I am and my community, have my community behind me, and have a mission to write this, right?
Yes.
That's it.
That part.
And I just, that anyone who had come into that position, that was their duty, that was their job. And really, it would have been incredible to grow up with this knowledge, right?
Yeah.
To know the importance of, not just on the ground, because we know that as Mob, you know the animals are important, your totems are important, you got to look after your totems, you got to look after the water. Like these are things that are very much ingrained in us from very early on. But to be able to look up, and I think it's a very important time and a very special time that this is happening as well, because it's not just, Mob that are looking up now, as a world, we're looking up. We're expanding, we're going into space, and I think the manner in which we do that is really interesting. And it's really important for Mob to be involved in those conversations, right? Historically, exploration has not been done in a very sophisticated manner, I will say. And to this day, we see it being done in horrific, horrible ways. And so I think, it's really important that we learn from those lessons, and we have Mob sharing stories of those lessons, and reminding everyone that this is really important that we get it right. We have gotten it wrong down here so many times, and to this day we still continue to get things wrong. And we need to move beyond that. We need to actually become the advanced society that we kind of like to believe that we are. We have all these flashy things, we have all the tech, we have all, the AI, everything, right? But yet we still kind of behave in quite these barbaric ways, where we just kind of stomp through places and not really take care or tread lightly. Which, as Indigenous people, we've really learned those lessons. And we learn it long ago. And so I think it's really important and a really good timing that, as Mob, we're able to stand up with our back straight, be proud of this, part of our culture, but then also say, all right, we need to be involved in this. We need to be involved in the space industry, in astronomy, in these emerging fields.
I think we need to lead in it if we can get, it's the same in technology, and this is what I tell community all the time, like this industry, they'll leave us behind.
Yeah.
They will. Tech will leave us behind. They don't move the same way we do, because that's such a fast-paced, like rapidly moving space.
Yeah.
Because it's trying to keep up with the new wave, and yet the workplaces aren't.
Yeah.
Like the tech's moving so fast, but the workplace just isn't. And it's such a great opportunity for transformation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But people just aren't. It's just not. Yeah, I think, because I work a lot around in diversity and inclusion and Indigenous engagement in the workplace as well, and it's just, people, a lot of these companies are starting at such basic levels, that for me, it's like, oh, that's where you're at. And so then I have to meet people where they're at rather than being like, I need you to like get some critical thinking and critical awareness about you and get this moving, because I really want to get in there and have proper conversations and, and sometimes that's uncomfortable. And, it's not very comfortable for me either, you know what I mean? Like, I don't like having these yarns either, but, they have to be had because I think that's the only way growth can occur. That's the only way growth can happen.
Yep.
And sometimes that means that we're uncomfortable, and sometimes that means that you might not like what comes out of my mouth.
Yeah.
But, join the club.
Yeah.
And so, I think that a lot of it is around engagement and how we engage with each other, and not just, and also adding value. Yeah. Adding value to each other, because most of the time, and communities are engaging outside of their communities with the assumption that they're not going to get anything in return. Yeah. And so we just have to accept that fact and get it moving, or else nothing really, we have to forge our own pathways, and sometimes that means like just doing something that doesn't always serve us.
Yeah.
Which is, it's hard to watch.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and but that's why those of us who are in these spaces and are forging ahead and are the first of their kind, or are quite isolated and alone. It's like, well, you got to be very brave.
Yeah.
You got to be so brave and so courageous, and it's, it's tiring. It's really exhausting sometimes. But if I can make it the pathway for someone else a little bit easier, just that little bit, then I'm going to do it.
And I think that's what helps you get through it and helps you be brave.
Oh, totally.
Like when it's something so much bigger than you, because, you can only stick up for yourself so many times, right? You can only advocate for yourself so many times. But when you're actually advocating for your community, you're advocating for, so I do a lot of work, thinking about protection of country. Sometimes this is country on the ground. This is, going against mining corporations. Sometimes this is advocating for sky country and the preservation of sky country. If you can kind of frame it as, well, this has nothing to do with me. This is actually for my community and for my country. And that includes all the people, all the babies, all the animals, all, everything, all the waterways, all the fish, everything, right? And you can acknowledge that, okay, I'm doing this for them, and I just happen to be the tool that's here at the time, right? It's like, okay, I can do this. I can be brave for them. Yes. And I think that's why it's so important to find something, at least it was for me, to find something. I've been doing physics and astronomy for years now, and I my day job is very much focused on doing Western astronomy. I'm not researching Indigenous astronomy. Like I do Western astronomy as my day job, and I could very easily not do any of that. I could very easily, not have these conversations, not protest new mines on country, not talk about sky preservation. I could just as easily not do that and just, be just a scientist, right? But for me, that's the most important thing, right? It's what drives me. It's what keeps me going and what allows me to be brave and just having that thing and that purpose that's so much bigger than you. I think it's just so important.
Because it's so interconnected.
Yeah.
Interconnected.
It's like the most used word in this book.
That's why I want to throw it out there. No, because everything has a place. Everything and everyone has a place.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that one too, because I believe that as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we all learn.
Yeah, I hope so.
I really resonated with your book, Karlie.
Good.
Your personal perspective. Just I felt seen.
Good.
Which is rare.
Yeah.
It's very rare. I'm just mindful of the fact we're at 6:45 now.
Beautiful.
We were going to open up for Q&A if anyone had any questions.
So maybe just fling a hand. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. We have a...
Yeah. No, but I really just wanted to thank you because...
No, thank you.
It's rare. It's rare that black women in the space get to connect, and I never cry.
Oh, I should have told you not to cry. I thought it'd be mum, not you.
No, but it's inspiring. And I know that you say that, you're just telling other people's stories in this book, but it means something to be trusted with these stories and to be told, because not everyone gets that. That's a privilege, And so that says something about you. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Susie.
It's lovely to watch, truly. Watching your journey is really beautiful to watch.
Thank you.
So thank you.
I love you. Oh, you made me cry.
Okay, I'm sorry. I won't look at you anymore. Go on then, Jeremy.
We're just going to wait for the mic so the people online can hear us. That's all.
Okay.
Question, guys?
So I think, yeah.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. I am really paranoid about space junk. I'm really worried about it. Does it affect, like, Sky Country? Does it affect watching? Does it affect, everything? The amount of stuff that's out there?
Hugely so. So what we first found in about 2020, so Starlink first launched its initial constellation, they call them, mega constellation in 2018, the end of 2018. So by about 2020 and 2022-ish, they had about 4,000 satellites in the sky. And it had increased the sky glow, this thing called sky glow, which is kind of like, so when you look out at night, and Canberra is actually a really great place to look up, but when you look out, the sky just has a natural, sometimes natural, but sometimes unnatural glow to it, and essentially light pollution. And so that light pollution, that sky glow, increased by about 10%. And so there's a lot of studies coming out now particularly from new observatories that are kind of popping up around the world, trying to estimate how significant this sky glow is going to affect, obviously, astronomical observations, scientific observations, because, we're measuring light hundreds of millions, billions of kilometers away. Very, very faint light. In my case, I measure radio waves. They're also very faint. and these satellites scatter a lot of radio waves and light coming from the sun. And that's why we're getting this overwhelmingly increase in the sky glow. So obviously this affects astronomers, but this affects people, right? So with a lot of knowledge, cultural knowledge that relates to the sky, for an oral culture, that knowledge has to be placed somewhere, right? This is what songlines are. It's knowledge that has been put in a place. And so sky knowledge, that also has a place. So the Milky Way, for example, there's a lot of traditions that relate to the Milky Way, a lot of traditions that relate to Pleiades or the Seven Sisters. So that's where the knowledge is stored. And it's used as what they call a mnemonic. It's essentially a tool that helps us retrieve that information. And so if you lose access to these places, these sites, you essentially are erasing that knowledge or erasing our way to access that as an oral tradition or our oral culture. But of course, it's affecting everything here, right? The migratory species, birds, magpies, their breeding season is all dependent on the light and those natural cycles. Turtles, use the light on the horizon. Any migratory species is affected by this. And so we're currently at about 10,000 satellites that are up in the near Earth orbit at the moment. This has hugely been funded by the military, which is something that people aren't aware of, which is really, really terrible. This is all of our sky. We all have rights and ownership of this sky. And so, Starlink, for example, they want to have about 40,000 satellites up in the sky in, 10 years or so. But there's other companies, Amazon have their own version. A British company, OneWeb, have their own version. And so it's just, when I say, we're kind of going in this trajectory that is very reminiscent of, say, colonialism. That's kind of what I mean. We're not treading lightly. We're doing the opposite. We're just, taking up this space without any considerations of the consequences. And we know these consequences now. They kind of had, they could kind of play ignorant when they first put them up there. But we know very well what these consequences are now, but they continue to do them. And so, yeah, it's very scary. It's very alarming. This is why things like dark sky preservation is really important. So I'm currently involved in trying to get a new dark sky place recognised on my home country, Kamilaroi country. So that's a work in progress. It's going really well. The council's really supportive of it. But when we think about national parks, for example, this is essentially what's been done with national parks. When colonialism came into Australia, and then we started building national parks and separating zones. This is a natural zone. We'll keep this. We won't develop this. When we look at our national parks today, so I went out to Timbimbilla a couple of years ago, and I was just so heartsick looking at the conditions and seeing how low the water was there and how dry it was there, right? It doesn't matter if we make these little zones because we can't protect it from things that are global, like climate change, or in this situation, something global like these mega constellations. So, we'll try and build these zones and we'll try and do what we can, but really we need to say no. And that involves our country, because our country has also given permission for Starlink to go ahead and similar companies. So yeah, we really need to be political. We have no choice. Yeah, thank you.
Great to hear you, ladies. Thank you very much. It's inspirational. I just wanted to, just reinforce what you say. There are actually lawyers for space now, and that's how much space has developed.
Yeah.
That should exist. But I just think what it is colonialism. We're just trying to take something else off you, and I think we possibly do that through pollution as well. Because in my readings of, say, looking at a crescent moon and the tips of the crescent moon and how that might relate to what winds are blowing, what the next season might bring. Pollution is going to affect that as well. Yeah. And so we'll be driving people out further and further to find those clear skies. Yeah. But I'm just wondering, you now do radio astronomy, so you're looking at things that are light years away.
Yeah.
I just wonder, can you comment on, I just find that the Indigenous observation is probably more relevant and tied to how you were going to live and the oneness with the land, because that was important to you to be able to maybe forecast what was coming and know. And I think that's possibly something that's lost in the Western astronomy that goes looking galaxies that are unconscionable distances away. And that is the question that the Aboriginal astronomy, Indigenous astronomy, is far more relevant just to getting through life.
Yeah, I'd completely agree. And like when we consider Indigenous knowledge, and I think I tried to really have this a feature of the book, that Indigenous knowledge is not, we don't have astronomy over here and maths over there and earth science over there and social studies over there. Like it's all one. Like you have a story that happens to have astronomical knowledge in it, but it relates to the birds. It relates to the winds, as you mentioned. It relates to what the moon's doing. It relates to all of these different things, because that's the reality of the world that we live in, right? So it's much more practical knowledge. And I completely agree, academia and Western science is quite abstract. It's, it doesn't, at first glance, really appear to have much practical use. There are some quite notable examples where we have gained quite significant, for example, technological advances because of the study of astronomy. So for example, the invention of Wi-Fi was an Australian invention. This is a very well-known one. And it came out of studying black holes and needing to send large volumes of information to collaborators. And so they invented Wi-Fi. So there are examples where obviously Western science has been hugely beneficial. But I think where I kind of sit is they're both really clever. They both teach us so much and quite, sometimes the same things, but also sometimes quite different things. And, Indigenous knowledge is able to be this beautiful, holistic knowing that connects all these different things. Whereas, in contrast, Western science can really go into the detail. Yeah. Why are we not working together? Right? Why are we not learning from each other and growing with each other and actually becoming, that advanced society and implementing all that we've learned as humans, right? That share this world. That's what I hope and dream and wish for. Yeah.
Karlie, if we have time, I do have a number of questions that have come through from people watching online.
Oh, lovely.
So we've probably got time for one. Someone has asked if you could share a bit about what your PhD work is focused on.
Oh, sure. So I look at the Milky Way. I feel really lucky that I get to look at the Milky Way. As much as I celebrate and really try to pedestal Indigenous knowledge. You know, I equally love the other stuff I get to do as well, and the really technical stuff I get to do. And I do feel really privileged that I get to study astronomy, right? It is a privilege. You know, not many people in the world get to do it, and I feel really, really lucky that I do get to do that. And I get to look at our galaxy every day. You know, how lucky is that? I didn't go too far into the universe. I stayed really close to our beautiful galaxy. And I look at the center of our galaxy. So we have the supermassive black hole that's in the center. Around that supermassive black hole, we have a lot of stars. There's a lot of stars, and you can see it. You can literally look up and see all these stars, that band, the emu in the sky, or that big band of light that we see across our beautiful southern skies. We're looking towards the center of the galaxy there. And that's why we see so many stars. All these stars have kind of gravitated towards that central bit. And over millions and millions of years, these stars have gone supernova. Right, so lots and lots of supernova going off all the time. And when that happens over millions of years, the supernova, you know, it's like this big explosion. And because we're rotating in this direction, the supernova goes off pretty much in that direction. The wind doesn't go very far in the disk, so it goes above and below the disk. And when that happens again and again and again, over millions, hundreds of millions of years, what we see now are these huge winds that have been pushed up by all of these supernova. And it's an extremely hot wind. It ranges, there's lots of different phases in this wind, but it goes up to about 10 million Kelvin, which is basically Celsius. So 10 million degrees. So very, very hot. And what I do is I mentioned radio astronomy. Now, radio telescopes, they observe radio waves, which correspond to a very particular element on the periodic table. It's the very first one. It's called hydrogen. And it's pretty much the base element of everything we know. It is the base element. It's the most simple form, most simple element that we have in our universe. And so this is the building block of everything we see. And this, you know, we're just lucky, and there were some very clever people who figured out radio astronomy, some very clever Australians who figured out radio astronomy in the World War II area, who worked for CSIRO. And they found that if you point a radio telescope up in the sky, you can see these signals coming from this element, this neutral hydrogen, in the universe or in the galaxy. And so I'm looking at this neutral hydrogen, and we know that neutral hydrogen exists in a very cold form. So neutral hydrogen is about 100 degrees. And so what I do is I look towards the center of the galaxy, and I see these really cold pockets of hydrogen in the center of the galaxy in this 10 million degrees wind. And so my job is finding out, or trying to find out, how these really cold gas clouds can exist in such an extremely hot environment. And to do that, I use the observations. I had to learn a lot of chemistry, which was shocking to me as a physicist. And I use computer simulations to do this because, of course, as astronomers, we don't have a laboratory. We can't just like go and run experiments, but we can on supercomputers. So we use supercomputers to do this, to simulate the galaxy, to simulate the wind and the cold pockets, to really try and hone in on the physics there of what's happening, because I think we kind of have this idea that we know everything and like all the physics is sorted out and, you know, we're all good. But we're really not. There's so much we don't understand. And so that's what I'm trying to understand and add some knowledge and, insight into. Thanks.
You're so knowledgeable.
I
I want to learn things now.
Thank you very much, Karlie Noon and Celeste Carnegie, for very. There's a lot of words in these conversations that I don't understand, but I'm glad we recorded it so I can go research it later. But thank you for this really wonderful and deep conversations and your journey and sharing your time with us. We really appreciate you visiting the National Library. Can we get a round of applause for our guests tonight? Karlie's going to sign some books. It's going to be a moment to be up there, but in the meantime, you can grab a book from the bookshop upstairs. To everyone else going home, safe travels home, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.